$730 million worth of Bitcoin and Ether options are set to expire today. So does this mean the market's gonna move like crazy? Well, no. Most times when there's crazy Bitcoin options expiries, which happen every Friday, the price really doesn't move as much because of it. Especially now that the longs and shorts are pretty evenly matched, and now that the price hasn't really moved a lot in a good while anyway, there's just not that much action. But now that we're talking about that action, right? One thing I do see a lot of people doing is like Elio Trade says right here. Sadly, I see people quitting crypto at an extreme rate right now. Hear this. If you've made it this far, I think it's worth it to see what happens after the halving, which happens in about 190 days from now. If Bitcoin gets sent as the shield against the debt crisis, it's going to be some madness and badness combination. And just to clarify, this is a bullish post. And my response to this is, like I say right here, if you've ever bought cryptocurrencies, you know what you bought in for, right? You understand what you signed up for. You knew it was going to be a bumpy ride, but hopefully it was going to be worth it. And like I always say, if somebody just convinced you to buy into this cryptocurrency stuff, you don't know what you're doing, you don't really know what you bought into, sure, reconsider. But I never expect those people to stick around, watch the videos, and DCA, dollar cost average, meaning buying your way down. If you are watching the content, right, you're keeping yourself informed, you're buying your way down, you're sometimes buying more, why would you ever give up? I mean, if you're giving up in a really bull market, I can understand that because you're giving up at one of the highest points, cashing out and using that money to do something better. But if you're giving up in a bear market when most cryptos are down this significantly much, it's like you're picking like the worst spot. I've already described before. I personally don't see a world where crypto goes down so much more, or rather where it's worth it to sell now in terms of just waiting it out and catching it on the way up. Because we've already been down for a couple hundred days. I always say this as well. If you're thinking about investing as a concept, especially in these riskier assets with a very high multiplier possibility, because we're investing not to get like 30% gains. We're here for like the 30Xs, right? I always see it like this. You can always get the money you're investing again, especially if you're a responsible investor. You're not investing more than you're able to lose, but you'll be able to make that up again. But the opportunity you might never get again, especially with the way I invest. I like to invest in things that are a little bit more private, which is harder to get into, but very often it's a now or never type of deal where if you don't invest right now, you're never going to get that chance again. And I always think about it in the sense of, yeah, if I don't take it now, I might regret that forever. But I'll never regret putting somebody in and trying it out or taking an opportunity and failing. I'd rather try than, I guess, living with the regret of not trying. Hopefully that makes sense. And with this post, again, it just kind of blinked in my head again. A lot of people that are giving up right now are probably just doing it out of panic or sheer fatigue. But understand that the greatest things take time, and the most beautiful things seem to always appear right out of the darkest period. I mean, a good question to ask you, I guess, if you're thinking about giving up is, what exactly are you going for? Otherwise, I mean, U.S. Senator says inflation in America is man-made, and that man name is President Joe Biden. That's what he says in this little 8-second clip. Well, it's got a good point. With the inflation always ramping up, a good question you can ask yourself is, what exactly is worth buying? Zero Hedge posted this just now. The U.S. added, checks notes, $275 billion in debt in one day. Total U.S. debt is now $33.442 trillion. It hit $33 trillion just 2 weeks ago. And on pace to rise by $1 trillion in 1 month. What in the world is going on? As again, on the 19th of September, he said, hey, we reached 33 trillion, and now they've increased it by about 300 billion in a day. So like Mike Warrington says, it feels like it's getting slightly out of hand. Well, it feels like it's unreal. And that's, I'd say, the position that we're in right now. I mean, many of these guys at the top know what's cooking up in the economy. They're preparing for it, and that's why I keep making these videos for you guys as well. They're preparing. They know what's going on. The CEO of Apple. And you might say, Dusty, this man sells very often. Let me tell you this. If you are extremely excited about the next couple of months or potentially 2 years of your company, you're not selling stock, especially not $100 million worth. Take a look. CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, has sold 511,000 Apple shares, which were valued at $90 million. Again, you might say, Dusty, almost all the CEOs, they get shares as their dividends, so they sometimes sell some. He's selling $90 million worth. And this man is already an extremely wealthy man. If he's doing so right now, even though it could be a couple months ago, this means that over the next couple of months or years, not like the next month, but it just means over the next couple months or next 1 to 2 years, he's not having the greatest of outlooks. Similar to how Coinbase and all the guys were selling off all that stock, right? It's a little bit different because if you're coming right out of an IPO, it's different to sell stock, or depending on what way they chose to go public, it's slightly different. But still, the idea arises there. These guys knew they were being valued, quote unquote, too high. Otherwise, you're not selling everything because you know better than anybody else how valuable your stock is. And so if you're selling it, you understand that most likely the performance of your company is not going to go crazy over the next while. And perhaps Apple is doing this because they understand, hey, their phones, kind of the same time and time again, are not going to have the most stellar year next year either. I might want to reduce here a little bit, or he understands the crash, or he understands the importance of diversification, yada, yada, yada. We don't know. But again, if he thought Apple was the big thing, you probably won't do that. Again, my personal philosophy. By the way, Apple, Tim Cook, is a Bitcoin holder, by the way. Little side note. On that similar field, talking about big things in the TradFi space, Schoenfeld, the former director of BlackRock, said the SEC will approve a Bitcoin spot ETF within 3 to 6 months. He also said there could be capital inflows up to $200 billion. That will most likely happen pretty quickly, but here we go. The SEC likely to approve all the Bitcoin spot ETFs at once, says former BlackRock executive. Imagine seeing all these headlines and then thinking, you know what, let me go ahead and give up. It doesn't make sense to me how people can think, let's just skip this right now. Similarly with the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit. If you're giving up an XRP right now, you're giving up at the moment where they've won it all back. And they're on the way back up, basically, from being pushed down so hard. And then you're thinking, you know what? Let me throw it all away. I don't fully understand that. Again, I can't look into your pocket. So if there's a really big need, you need these funds right now, please go ahead and do what you need to do. But the way I see it is right now is the time to accumulate. You don't really have that much more time left to buy at these lower prices. Soon enough, I think we're slowly climbing towards the upside again. Let's say we're at $35,000 per Bitcoin soon enough. People will not realize the bull market's back until we're so way much further, even though that means we're already up 120, 130% from the bottom. Again, in my own personal views, the bull market has long started and we're just at one of the lower parts of it. But if we're going to look back at this in about a year and a bit from now, we'll see like, oh yeah, that was actually a really good entry. Again, we can have another dip. I don't think we're going to go lower than 15,000 unless, again, the guys at BlackRock, etc., decided that would be best to try to shake people out, get some fear going, perhaps a little coalition with the SEC, a little co-op effort, try and shake people out, try to get the price as low as humanly possible for these institutions to get a good entry and then just spike up. And therein comes the matter of DCA, dollar cost average, and being smart about your buys. I could actually buy a significant amount more crypto right now today, but I'm not. I always keep some money on the sidelines in case something crazy happens, or in case I need to buy a new opportunity. You always want to have some cash. That's why I always say don't invest everything. Always keep some on the side for in case. I'd rather have this safety part than the additional gains from investing everything. I just never think it's a good idea. Almost never. Sometimes, let's just say, well, you have to wait a little bit for another cash inflow, and so you want to invest everything now, then get that cash inflow somewhere else. That can work, but you understand my system. Anyway, if you've been thinking about giving up, please reconsider. If you've not been thinking about giving up, solid. Like I said before, you can look at these headlines, oh, so much in expiry. Regardless of how much our puts or calls, I have never really seen it have a big effect on crypto. You might say, oh, but they have to buy then because their options are expiring. So they're going to get a sign. They're going to have to buy that Bitcoin, whatever. It thus far has never really done a big thing, at least as far as I've noticed. Perhaps that's because the options market's still pretty small in the crypto space, could be. Perhaps because there's really no volatility right now, so puts, calls are really evenly matched, so nothing crazy can happen in that regard either. Perhaps because the institutions are not that heavily involved, but that's, I'd say, untrue because they are. They're just mostly crypto-focused institutions, but they're still pretty big. Anyway, with all this positive news in the pipeline, with the ETFs, etc., things like that, how can one think of giving up? I don't understand. When you're really seeing that this is the area a lot of these major institutions and high-profile billionaires are going for, I don't know. Just think about it for yourself, and I'll see you guys again in another crypto video, hopefully later today. And like I always say, guys, make sure you join our Discord. We're also going to be launching a couple of new cool things soon. I'm thinking of also getting some content out there for like the real beginners. A lot of people said, Dusty, your content's nice, but it's a little bit too difficult for people that are just starting out with crypto. You need some more basic stuff. So I'm thinking of how to actually get all this basic knowledge to you guys. Right now, the best thing to do is just join Discord, be able to talk with people that are also into crypto, and go from there. But yeah, that's it.